All right, y'all, what's going on? It's Combo Breaker 99 back with another video. All right, y'all, back with another discussion video on this title fight, Zhang Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. This fight here, man, I do believe is 50-50. That's why I keep talking about it here, because there's just so many angles to it I see. And just listening to other videos and, going back now to look at their fights, I just see so many things and so many scenarios playing out with this one. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this fight again here, just a little aspect here I wanted to discuss. Kind of going to freestyle it off the top, so it might be short, might be long. We'll see. But shout out to Coach, man. I was just watching his recent breakdown for this fight, and shout out to Coach. I always respect him, man, on his analysis. He gives some of the best breakdowns, if not the most detailed. And I know that he's predicting that Suarez wins this fight, but it's not going to be easy. I myself, I haven't made my prediction yet. Y'all know how I do, man. Like, especially with these 50-50 fights, they got me sweating, man. They got me sweating on, like, who's going to win the fight. It's not really so much as the prediction, but it's just like how it's going to play out, especially when I like both fighters. I hate to see both fighters like wind up just getting dominated in there. I almost kind of want like a boring decision just because I want to see both fighters showcase like skills, like high skills that makes the other respect them. I don't want to see somebody get starched in there. Kind of like, when Rose knocked out Zhang Weili, I would have preferred it to be like a lot of mutual respect, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like when you like both fighters. But yeah, man, this one here, I'm not sure yet. I'm still trying to decide on my pick because I think it is going to be close. For one, I do feel like Zhang Weili. I do think that Zhang Weili is a more well-rounded fighter here. She's grown more. She's had more competition. She's got a chance to have more activity. Where I think Tatiana Suarez, she's just a few years behind in evolution in the game. But the thing about her is, she's powerful. She's one of the strongest, and she's one of the strongest strawweights, if not the strongest strawweight in the division right now, and the best wrestler. So I think that Tatiana Suarez, with those two things, plus time being against her, we're gonna see Suarez come in here and just go for broke. I think she's gonna go for broke because she might not have another chance like this again. Another injury might come up. So whether or not she is injured, I think she's just going to push it to the side and give it her all in this fight. So I think with that momentum and that hunger, and with time being against her, I think that's what's going to balance out the 50-50 here. I think that's what's going to balance out the skill sets of Zhang Weili. But yeah, looking at this fight, man, just listening to Coach's breakdown, there's one thing I do agree with him on, is that Tatiana Suarez, she can't get pulled into a striking match with Zhang Weili. And I don't think she will either. I agree with that. Like, I don't think she will get into like a striking match with Zhang Weili. But I really do think it's important that she gets just some respect on the feet from Zhang Weili. All right. Because for one, Zhang Weili, she definitely has a powerful right hand. She's got a powerful right hand. Overall, striking's better, I think. The hand speed, um, the way she delivers her hooks, that brawling style of hers. I think that's enough to stop Suarez in some aspects, the fight. But I think alone, Zhang Weili has a very good, powerful right hand. I think it was an overhand right that caused that hematoma on Joanna's head, right? Like it landed like flush on the forehead a number of times. So I think that's a very effective shot for Zhang Weili in this fight. And it could stop Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez, gets reckless in there and she shoots just naked and just telegraphs her shoot or her if she just telegraphs her takedowns and she just starts shooting blindly, she could get stopped in there by that overhand right. So I think it's important that Tatiana Suarez, not only develops, her striking to a certain level, but she uses her overhand right. All right. Because there was this recent post. Well, no, this wasn't even that recent. It was like a couple of years ago. I know I talked about it over here once, where Sarah McMahon was talking about how wrestlers have a strong overhand right, and how that overhand right, why it's so powerful. It's because it's their, like their shooting hand. And she said that's their most dominant hand. So it gives them a lot of like power. So I think that it's important that Tatiana Suarez kind of develops overhand right in this fight. I mean, who knows? She might be, but I think it's really important that she uses that overhand right in this fight, to get Zhang Weili down. Like, Zhang Weili may be strong enough to fend off some takedowns that are just going to be her trying to wrestle her down, but if she really wants to get Zhang Weili down this fight, she's going to have to land something on the chin and hurt her. So then she can, just get Zhang Weili in a more dominant position with Zhang Weili being foggy and maybe even submit Zhang Weili quick. But this is what Sarah McMahon had to say. I had to pull up the IG here. It was from like March 31st of 2022. All right. So Sarah McMahon said this. She said, wrestlers just have a strong overhand right. I don't know if it's somehow close to the mechanics of a collar tie or if we just hit as hard as we can with our dominant hand, which is typically our shooting hand. All I know is that even before I could throw a proper punch, this baby was saving my butt in MMA and fights outside of competition. All right. So, yeah, Sarah McMahon said she was throwing down like that. All right. She must have been getting in some street fights, right? But yeah, man. So I can see where she's coming from with that. Like, even before strikers, I know Coach talked about this too. Like, it's hard to develop wrestlers into strikers, which it is because of how they're used to shooting and their footwork and their overall stance. But for somebody like Suarez that is a wrestler and like Sarah McMahon, I think that one punch is a little bit easier to develop because of the way they shoot. They're a little bit more flat-footed, stationary, sometimes front foot heavy, but at the same time they're explosive. So instead of using it as a shooting hand, when they come over the top with the overhand right, say they just like throw a blind jab out and just throw an overhand right, they're coming down with a lot of force, right? So when you're coming down with all that force, punching down is going to bring a lot more power, say, versus somebody punching up. Like even like your regular strikers, if they're just punching up, it's going to hurt because they know how to throw a straight right hand if they're throwing it up at a taller fighter. But if you're punching down and you're bringing all that force down, that shot will almost guarantee to knock somebody out or knock them down. So I think that's going to be an important punch for Tatiana Suarez because even when you look back at like boxers like Triple G, Gennady Golovkin, like Gennady Golovkin, he's more flat-footed. He comes forward, just using that pressure style. But when he throws that overhand right, he's bringing down all that force with those front two knuckles. He's bringing all of that down on his opponent. And also the drills he's doing with like his forearms makes that punch really powerful. So overhand rights, especially for a wrestler that's bringing all that explosiveness coming forward instead of shooting and they're punching, that'll bring a thunderous right hand and some really good results for Tatiana Suarez if they're developing that punch. So if Tatiana Suarez is able to catch Zhang Weili sleeping in there, or maybe even draw her like partially into like a striking match or bait her into thinking she wants to box with her, she can use that moment to maybe throw a couple of blind jabs in the face of Zhang Weili, maybe a couple of little kicks to spam out. And then as she steps in like she's going to drop a level, she can just come up over the top and drop that overhand right on the jaw of Zhang Weili. Because remember, Zhang Weili, she has very good offense when it comes to her striking, but she's not the best technically when it comes to her defense. All right. That's one thing about Zhang Weili. She doesn't have the best defense upstairs when it comes to blocking shots. She will like to trade in there like she did with Joanna. She kept her hands down against Rose, kept her hands down against Yan Zhaonan, and that was her last fight. All right. So just looking back at the tapes, I'm just going off of, what I see here, and I'm going off of facts, not feelings. But, Zhang Weili was dropped like what, 3 or 4 times. I'll always bring that up. She was dropped 3 or 4 times in that Yan Zhaonan fight. So even though Tatiana Suarez isn't a striker, this can be her moment to say, okay, since I'm not a striker, Zhang Weili might come down with her hand. She might come in with her hands down a little bit more, getting a little comfortable, thinking I'm just going to shoot and I'm not going to strike with her. So then Suarez, when she does shoot and she comes in, just like Sarah McMahon, you can see here against a kickboxer, she landed the perfect overhand right. And I believe she did drop Carol Rosa or hurt her or won. She did stun Carol Rosa bad with this one. So yeah, the wrestler here can come in and hurt the striker if she catches the striker sleeping on her striking. All right. If that makes sense to y'all. Y'all know what I mean, right? So yeah, I think that again, like I agree with Coach, like a lot of wrestlers, it is really hard to teach them like the fundamentals of like boxing just because they're so used to their stance being different and the way they shoot. But I think to make up for that, you have to take specific punches, away from like other sports, like again, say from boxing, you have to like feed them certain punches that that they can incorporate into their build and their stance and their plan of attack. Okay. So like an overhand right will always work for a wrestler here in this case. Why? Because their shooting arm, that's their strongest arm, right? So if that's their right hand, and if they use that to throw an overhand right, that's going to be an effective punch for them. Okay. And how they come straight in, how Tatiana Suarez might be flat footed at times, if she's careful to avoid a few lead leg kicks from Zhang Weili, she's able to just put that pressure on, cut the octagon off. She can explode off a couple of jabs, spam kicks, throw the overhand right. All right. So yeah, man. So the more I look at this, man, when it comes down to it, both fighters' right hands could be effective in this fight. I'm not going to just sit here and say, okay, Zhang Weili's got it won when it comes to, the stand-up game. But the more I look at this thing, this could be battle of the right hands. It really could. We already know that Zhang Weili has a powerful overhand right. Shoot, she dropped Amanda Lemos hard with it. I thought Amanda Lemos might drop her in the fight a couple times, but her overhand right, it dropped Amanda Lemos when she timed it perfectly, right? But again, if Tatiana Suarez, Pagy Mix, if they're really working on making her hands effective, they're going to add this element into her wrestling offense. Okay. They're not going to they shouldn't try to change her into a striker or a kickboxer overnight. Not at all. They should just add this element into her already dangerous offense. Okay. So, yeah, man, I think Tatiana Suarez, with her physical presence and her natural strength and explosiveness, that's going to be a handful for Zhang Weili. But if she adds this in here, man, she might drop Zhang Weili. Don't be surprised. Do not be surprised if Zhang Weili goes down a couple times in this fight. She might not get knocked out, but if Tatiana Suarez knocks her down, that gives her a good chance to go in there and submit her. All right. So Zhang Weili's definitely got to be on her game. Suarez has got to be on her game. Do I know who's going to win? Nope. This ain't a prediction video. This is just another discussion one. All right. So just another little aspect I wanted to talk about here. But what do y'all think? What do y'all think? I know most of you already know or feel like Zhang Weili has the better, quicker right hand off top. But what if Tatiana Suarez develops her right hand and uses it like a good solid wrestler like Sarah McMahon said? Because there's a lot of truth to what Sarah McMahon is saying. The overhand right from a wrestler is very effective, and it could be in this fight. So what are y'all thoughts on this one? Again, shout out to Coach. I just kind of wanted to give my take on the wrestling aspect and how she could be effective here. But after watching his video, it kind of just clicked in my head. I wanted to talk about this, where what, Suarez could land some good shots on Zhang Weili and hurt her. I think so. But yeah, make sure y'all hit the like button and subscribe. Give me y'all's thoughts in the comment section. Combo Breaker 99. I'm out. Subscribe. Peace.